Hi, my name is Duncan Valliant-Saunders, or DVS for short, and I'll be your host for this show. When I was a child, my parents read to me often, and I still remember the lavish book, which I still own, titled The Mystery of the Pyramids. My parents also brought me to the movies a lot, and I fondly remember the Indiana Jones trilogy, which instilled in me a love for archaeology at a very early age.
My dad was in a cavalry regiment during the First World War. And when Duncan was 4 years old, he sat down next to the fireplace and said, "Dad, why don't we tie up the horses like we did when we were in India? And we're going to have tiffin." Tiffin is the Indian word for tea.
My father recounted this story to me more than 10 years ago, and it sparked an intense introspective question in me. Does the human soul exist? Does it pass from life to life? Is it a real, tangible, measurable thing? Or simply an archaic philosophy of certain religions? Come with me as I explore the existence of the human soul. Can religion or science answer this age-old question? That's what I will address in this, my first documentary. Now, I should let you know I'm not a rich guy. I've only produced 2 short films with my new film company, Room 18 Films. So I had to tackle this subject with a small budget, but at the same time try to offer up to the gods, so to speak, a conclusion, a revelation that could shake the very foundations of science and religion and the human race. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. King James Bible, Genesis, chapter 2, verse 7.
We go all the way back to Genesis, when in the creation of the human being, it says that God breathed into the human being the breath of life. Again, this is a metaphoric phraseology. What does it mean? Probably the closest thing you can get to the human soul, and maybe this is exactly what it is. It's the godly part of us.
Since the dawn of civilization, mankind has looked up to the heavens in search of God. Early civilizations latched on to the belief that God had created man and had imbued him with a soul. From the very early deep-sea rovers to the many rockets and satellites devised by man, mankind seemed to be searching for the answers to his creation. The early electrical devices of the 20s, the telephone, to the invention of TV in the 50s, it was clear that mankind had harnessed and conquered the new medium called electricity, but mankind still has yet to master the concept of the human soul.
The Christian belief, at least, is that only human beings have souls, and a soul that carries on after the physical life ends. And I believe that we have spirit, just like the buffalo has a spirit, and the sturgeon has a spirit, and the bald eagle, and so on. The tree, the oak or the maple, they have a spirit too. And even the season has a spirit. So that these are things that live after the physical life ends, and they continue. And I believe that the spirit records all.
As well, my daughter Kim was inordinately afraid of loud noises. And we found out later she had been killed in a World War II bomb. And she actually had a port wine mark under her scalp, and you couldn't see it because her hair is now grown in, but as a baby there was an actual mark where the piece of shrapnel had gone in and killed her. And when we went to fireworks shows at the age of 3 or 4, she could not stand the noise of the fireworks and asked to be put back in her car. So that's how lifetimes come back to haunt you. So that's how lifetimes come back to haunt you.
My father's recollections of me and my sister's childhood stories are shocking. While it may have confirmed an interest in the occult for my father Gary, which ultimately led him to become a psychic, in me it asked for something more concrete, more scientific, less conjectural. But at the same time, it did not deny in me an intrinsic belief that there could be something greater to this age-old mystery. For many North American Christians, the search for the origin of God and the human soul lies with their belief in Jesus. Jesus was made to carry the cross to his crucifixion, to wear a crown of thorns, and even while being crucified, a Roman centurion named Longinus pierced Jesus' side with a spear, known as the Spear of Destiny. Jesus of Nazareth, born to the Virgin Mother Mary, also known as the Madonna, is the Christian's crucial link between heaven and earth. The very fact that Mary was a virgin who would go on to carry and give birth to the literal Son of God is a mystery in itself. Nowadays, through modern in vitro fertilization methods, this amazing feat is a definite scientific possibility. But many Christians look beyond this and still have faith in Jesus' teachings and how a Christian may pursue and obtain the righteous path to heaven for their Christian souls.
There's always a bit of a problem when you talk about common Christian belief, because common Christian belief could mean going to a place, the description of which might be found in something like the Book of Revelation, jeweled streets, water of the river of life flowing through, and so forth. In other words, something very picturesque, but we need to bear in mind that all of that's symbolic type imagery. Rather than place, it's probably better to speak of being with God. What that might actually look like, we don't have any strong information about that. It's all that kind of picture imagery of, but place, no. State of being, yes. Because I think the thing that the Bible regularly says is that nothing can finally separate the believer from God, that nothing can destroy the relationship that begins in this life, not even death. So what people become after death, again, it's not, we don't have detail on that. It's rather an assurance that a relationship that's established can never be undone.
The human body, to put it simply, is made up of three things: blood, flesh, and bones. There are over 270 bones in an infant and 206 bones in an adult. The human body can be compared to these bricks. The red bricks representing the blood, and the white bricks representing the bones. Bones help to move, support, and protect human organs. Bones also store minerals and produce red and white blood cells. Bones are principally comprised of calcium phosphate, or in more specific chemical terms, calcium hydroxylapatite. Surprisingly, under stress, bones produce piezoelectric currents. That is to say, small electrical voltages. But why not? As I learned in chemistry class, calcium is, after all, a metal. Then we have the blood cells. Blood is comprised mainly of water at about 91%. Blood also contains mineral ions, hormones, glucose, carbon dioxide, and dissolved proteins. Blood delivers oxygen and nutrients to the body while removing waste products, like carbon dioxide. Blood can also be compared to these bricks. These white bricks representing the white blood cells, and the red bricks representing the red blood cells. Red blood cells by far make up the largest percentage and contain a protein called hemoglobin, which in turn contains the element iron. Indeed, if you look at the chemical makeup of hemoglobin, at its very center is the element iron. Iron is considered a ferrous element, that is to say, it can be magnetic and can conduct electricity. It would be ignorant to assume that the human body containing both these elements, calcium and iron, would not carry an electrical impulse. Could this electrical signal be the human soul? The ancient Egyptians believed fervently in the afterlife and went to great lengths to prepare the body in this realm for the next. Priests would remove the liver, the lungs, the stomach, and the intestines and would store them in 4 canopic jars, representing the 4 sons of Horus. The spirit or soul was said to hover above the body like a human-headed bird called the Ba. But was this belief accurate? Did the soul leave the body as it was being embalmed, wrapped in fine linens, or had it already left the body upon death? Mummy hands, subjected to a Kirlian device, that's an electrical machine that detects energy fields, still display a latent energy field thousands of years later. Is this the human soul? The cup of eternity found in King Tut's tomb bears the inscription, "May you spend millions of years, you who love Thebes, sitting with your face to the north wind, your 2 eyes beholding happiness." Was this meant to mean that the soul of the mummy, trapped in the iron of the hemoglobin of the blood, would remain forever? The popular Egyptian amulet, the Ujat eye, also known as the Eye of Horus, also told of restoring the dead to life. It was also thought to protect against sickness. The Ankh, the Egyptian symbol meaning literally life, was shaped like a Christian cross, except with a teardrop or circle at the top. I've discovered a modern interpretation or use of the Ankh, which I will explain later. Ptah, the ancient Egyptian god, was the father of the gods, Anubis, Ra, Isis, and Osiris, to name a few. These all-knowing beings who descended upon Egypt in ancient times taught the Egyptians how to farm, to cut stone, and build ancient monuments, like the pyramids, which still exist today. Ptah was the patron deity of artists and craftsmen, and was the principal god of Memphis, an ancient Egyptian metropolis which was the capital of Egypt at one time. Ptah, seen in this picture, is holding a staff composed of the Jed pillar, the ancient Egyptian symbol of stability, combined with an Ankh. The Jed pillar has a striking resemblance to modern-day electrical insulators, a significance which I will point out later as well. What did the ancient Egyptians know about the afterlife, inferred perhaps from these symbols? The Ankh, the Ujat eye, the Jed pillar. Could a modern-day interpretation, a modern-day revelation, shatter the commonly held beliefs in these otherwise traditional Egyptian religious relics? Our understanding of science has exploded over the last 2,000 years, from astronomy to medicine to even food. Nutritional content charts are now standard on all food, yet our knowledge of the human soul still remains archaic. Don't worry, I will illuminate you with my modern hypothesis. But what about those that don't believe in God, those known as atheists?
Why would something create man? Like, why would you go about busying yourself with creating or modifying monkeys, if you will, right? Like, I mean, we already have enough evidence in the anthropological record and the historic record to say, yeah, this is where we've come from. This is what we've evolved from. I mean, realistically, human behavior, when you look at it, isn't much different from the monkeys in the trees. You know, you got chimpanzees that invade other trees, even though they have enough food, right? Even though they have enough supplies, they can live comfortably in their entire lives, and they'll invade other trees and kill other chimps. And I mean, when you look at humanity, you know, they're so worried about political territory that they'll overtake other cultures and commit genocide and commit atrocities. And 9 times out of 10, religion becomes a tool for division instead of unification. I mean, there's a lot of things that religion unifies, but realistically, it's one of the polarizing facets of conflict, right? Like if you look at every conflict throughout history, it was always, you know, let's pick on a minority and let's make sure they're a different religion, and while we're at it, we'll kill all the women and children just because they're a different religion. You know, and that's, I think if there, like, I believe if there was a God, and God actually did care about humanity, God would step in at that point, right? Like if you're omnipotent and all-powerful and all-knowing, right, why would you let your own creation destroy itself? And people always say, the counter-argument's always, oh, well, look, you know, it's Satan rearing his ugly head. And I don't think, I don't think, you know, if God is all-powerful, then Satan wouldn't matter, you know? So it's a flawed argument from the get-go, right? And people love to believe in flawed arguments.
But will an atheist's belief in no God still hold firm as they face death, as we all must do, eventually?
Whatever it is of their faith, of their religious leaders. I have seen, you know, different priests or different ministers come in. One client just recently, she wasn't a practicing Catholic, but she did want last rites and to make sure that we got that, you know, set up for her, which we don't usually do that, but we do ask the family members to make sure, you know, that if they know someone to bring them in for them, because we don't, that's not part of our job. But I have seen, you know, the few that I have dealt with that are religious, they do talk about heaven, or they do talk about that God is, you know, that they're going to their God and they're going to their maker. One client made a comment which I really had to, you know, correct her, that I think God is punishing me because I haven't gone to church. And I had to correct her on that one and say, no, I don't think God's punishing you at all. I think, you know, God, you know, if you believe in God as I do, then God isn't someone who punishes. It's, you know, he's taking you to where he wants you to be, in a better place. You know, unfortunately you got this illness, but you know, whether, you know, it's nobody's fault that you got this illness. It just happened. And she seemed to be okay with it. You know, I'm not a great philosopher on religion or anything, but she seemed more at ease knowing that someone told her, or, you know, that she understood that, you know, God isn't punishing her, and that the God, because it was later that she said that, you know, like, I think I want to go home, and I think then she understood that, you know, God would accept her in heaven.
Being an Anglican myself, I found it most appropriate to interview someone from the Anglican sect of Christianity about religion and science and the existence of the human soul.
I don't believe that modern scientific data does contrast with traditional Christian beliefs on the existence of the soul. The questions science are trying to answer are really not those questions which the Christian tradition has been trying to answer, at least as regards the question of the soul. Christianity is not ultimately concerned with, can I prove the existence of the soul? Can I see it, taste it, touch it? Can I measure it or put it under a microscope? What Christianity is concerned with is the fate of the soul. We simply take it on faith that the soul exists. It's very interesting to us if the scientific community has taken a scientific interest in the question of the existence of the soul.
Christianity has its own beliefs on God and the soul, but what do other religions have to say?
You know, the purpose of human life on this earth, and we call it that human life is the supreme life given by God to a person. And the real purpose is for us to remember God so that our soul can merge with His soul, and we can get rid of this circle of birth and death and reincarnation. That's the main purpose of our life. And if we do that, if we are, again, according to Sikh faith, if we are remembering God all the time, there is a good possibility that our soul ultimately is purified and merges with the Almighty God.
Indira Gandhi's 1984 action to overpower Sant Jamal Singh Bhindranwale led to the attack on the Golden Temple, also known as Harmandir Sahib in Amritsar, resulting in the massacre of thousands of Sikhs. I was lucky enough to tape the commemoration of this event.
अकाल मूर्त अजूनी सेवं गुरु परसो तुम्हारी शरण तुम्हारी आशा तुम ही सजन सुहेले राखो राख निहार दिया था नानक करके बोले जो तो प्रेम के लड़ने का जाओ जो तो प्रेम के लड़ने का जाओ जो तो प्रेम के लड़ने का जाओ
Literally, the word Islam means peace, but I would expand it a little bit, saying that it's peace through submission to the will of God.
I was extremely fortunate as I was the first person allowed to film the Muslim observance of Ramadan in 13 years, primarily due to the level of anti-Muslim sentiment after the attacks of 9/11.
Ramadan is different. Ramadan is the fasting. And the concept of fasting is not unique with the Muslims. In fact, the Quran says, I have prescribed fasting for you just as I prescribed for other people. So if you look at the other faith groups, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Hindus, the Jews, everyone has some form of fasting. There are differences in the form, but the concept is the same. And fast is something, although it's physical in the sense that we abstain for certain things during certain times. For Muslims, it's during the month of Ramadan, which is the 8th lunar month, from dawn to dusk, that they abstain from any nourishment.
أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله
The Buddha rejected the theory that there is a permanent and unchanging part of the personality, such as the soul, that continues essentially unchanged, taking on different forms in different lives. because he taught, or based on his observance, he taught that the entire phenomenal world, anything that is conditioned, anything that comes into being based on causes and conditions, is impermanent. So the three sort of characteristics of existence, according to Buddhist thought, are that all conditioned things are impermanent, all conditioned things are without permanent essence or soul. So instead of soul theory, he taught not soul theory, anatma. And finally, the third, that all conditioned things are subject to suffering or destruction.
To understand the beginning of Buddhism, it is necessary to know the story of the first Buddha, father of Buddhism, Bodhisattva Gautama.
So he sat down, we are told, by a beautiful river under what is called the Bodhi tree, which is a type of religious fig. It is called the religious fig. And it is said to have been the night of the full moon.
After accepting a meal from Sujata, Bodhisattva Gautama sat under the Bodhi tree facing east. He was determined to not leave until he had attained his goal. Bodhisattva Gautama was the son of a king, but had left his father's kingdom of wealth many years ago in search of enlightenment, a state of mental bliss termed nirvana. The beasts and the birds of the forest fell silent in anticipation. Then, suddenly,
Roar! I am the demon Mara. You are weak with the human passions of fire. You will never achieve nirvana.
Mara, I will not falter on my path.
Oh, really? I heard your father, the king, has died. You should become king and rule over all his lands.
Tempting Mara, but the earthly desires for power and fame are not mine. I will not falter on my path.
Ah! Then I will send my armies to destroy you!
Sensuality, hunger and thirst, craving, sloth and lethargy, fear, doubt, hypocrisy, self-exaltation, fame. Mara, I have seen your armies for what they really are. I will not falter on my path.
You won't be able to resist my 3 daughters.
Bodhisattva Gautama, I will make you happy. I will make you content. Choose me. Bodhisattva Gautama, Bodhisattva Gautama, Bodhisattva Gautama, choose me.
Enough, enough, enough. Your discontent, your craving, your delight. I will have none of you. Mara, I will not falter on my path.
If these are my minions, my allies, who will defend you against every temptation in life?
then out of a rock in the forest clearing appeared the earth goddess.
I will stand testimony to the merits of Bodhisattva Gautama. All the birds of the earth and every creature thereof will stand beside him forever.
And the earth goddess wrung out her hair with an ocean which drowned Mara and his 3 daughters. Bodhisattva Gautama was then alone again, free from Mara and his temptations. A shower of flower petals rained down from the heavens, and Bodhisattva Gautama attained nirvana, and would forever be known thereafter as Buddha, the Enlightened One.
I don't think that we should understand heaven as a part of our physical space as such. We have to use symbols that allow us to talk about afterlife, and heaven is the most powerful symbol.
Any Christian knows about Satan, or Lucifer, the fallen angel who rebelled against God and was expelled from heaven.
Lucifer, especially in the book of Ezekiel, it talks about Lucifer being just this bright and morning star, this individual who also was the leader of the choir in heaven, so to speak, and he was gifted in music. But pride rose up in his heart, and he said that he wanted to be like God. He should have taken the place of Jesus. He was jealous. And so because of that, pride rose up and he fell. And so God had to remove him from heaven. And so he is on earth here, roaming around, seeking whom he may devour, just like a lion. That's what the word says. So Lucifer was once good, once an amazing angel in all his glory, but he fell because pride rose up in his heart.
Coming back to the scientific aspect of the human soul, I visited a naturopath/homeopath who reinforced my theory.
Okay, this is just an electrical device.
Okay.
And it only measures the resistance. A healthy cell has the resistance of 50 microampere.
Oh, okay.
This is here in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you have an inflammation, your heart, more blood, it's higher.
Okay.
When you're degenerated, there's no circulation. Okay. That's cold. It's lower.
Yeah.
That is basically all it measures.
Okay.
And acupuncture points.
Okay.
And they measure it because there's more water in acupuncture points.
Oh, okay.
Let's have higher connectivity. Acupuncture point, as I said, is a hole.
Yeah.
And there's coming up a lymph vessel.
Okay.
An artery, a vein, and a nerve.
Ah, okay, okay.
And then basically this is where you measure.
Yeah.
Because there's more connectivity.
Okay.
This is all. There's basically no hocus pocus, nothing. This is strictly technical. And now we check the influence of. You cannot almost not say mind just by saying something. Okay. You say my liver is bad.
My liver is bad. Oh my God. That's crazy. That's crazy. It's just a mindset. It's a mindset. It affects the electrical signal in the body.
Yeah, but so fast, without meditation or deep going thoughts or whatever, what I always thought you have to do.
Yeah.
Oh my God, just saying something.
Yeah.
If everything bad we say acts up like this, this is horrible. Okay, we want to fix it.
Sure, okay.
My liver is good.
My liver is good. Oh my God!
It goes back to normal.
For Egyptians, the passage to heaven involved the weighing of their heart against a feather. Anubis was present, and if the heart was light, free from sin, then the soul would pass into heaven with the gods. But if it was heavy and weighed more than the feather, the beast Ament would devour their soul.
Instead of change, if you think about a feather is a very light, something that's very light. It's almost ephemeral. It can float in the wind and all this kind of stuff. And you can see how you can think about that. And then you think about war, and what war is, all heavy things. You have swords on one side, and helmets on one side, and cannons on one side, and none of those things are ephemeral. They're all very solid and very damaging. And so again, it gets to the point that there's something very spiritual on the one side, and then something very solid, earthly on the other that's almost one way bad if you think about it in that sense. And so instead of weighing a feather, if you know, if you're a warlike tribe, you wouldn't have a feather on the other side, you might have a sword on the other side. And whether, you know, how often you picked up your sword or how many people you killed would be on the other side. It's sort of a funny sort of way that humans have both this feather and they also have the sword. And one would hope eventually the feather would take over, but I'm not altogether sure it has so far. The sword is still pretty prominent.
I met with a registered musical therapist to investigate the phenomena of musical therapy and how it may affect the human condition and ultimately the human soul.
My introductions to the bowls, the first book that I read was a book by Mitchell Gaynor, who is an oncologist down in the United States. And he, within his cancer treatment, he had a Tibetan monk come to him with cancer and bring a singing bowl and say, "This is how we're going to work with my cancer."
I met with David Kardish, part owner of the Rito Bakery, to explain kashrut, the Jewish kosher law concerning food.
Kosher for many people has come to mean clean. That's what it's understood as. But clean refers to that people eat properly. They eat the right foods that are specified in the Torah and the Talmud and the Mishnah. There are numerous markings on kosher foods to help identify them as kosher. You will identify, most of them will tell you are parve or dairy, and that's identified either on the product. Now, in Canada, you have two main kosher organizations. One is called COR, which is out of Toronto, and one is called MK, out of Montreal. We have one in Ottawa itself called the OVH, which supervises a number of different organizations and products.
The Torah, Talmud, and Mishnah are ancient Hebrew texts specifying Jewish laws to observe, just like the Ten Commandments handed down to Moses on Mount Sinai by Jehovah or Yahweh, the Hebrew and Christian God.
So there's a term in Hasidus, in mysticism, called the sparks of holiness. And what this refers to is that when the world was created, there was the tzimtzum, the contraction, and I'm not sure if this was the evolution of the Big Bang, but in Jewish thought, this certainly refers to the nitzutzot, these sparks of holiness that were scattered amongst the entire world.
Here we are, a little bit of a road trip. We're driving out to Stanley's old Maple Lane farm with my cameraman, Daniel Nalawi, and we're going to go out to see some animals, some horses, and some cows, just to see if animals have souls, because in the Bible, in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, it is strictly forbidden under kosher law or kashrut to consume the blood of animals, because it is said that the blood of the animals actually contain the soul of the animal. So we're going out, we're going to do some top secret tests on these animals to see if in actuality animals have souls. So here we are, we're at Stanley's old Maple Lane farm. Using a portable oscilloscope, that's an electrical device that detects electrical or sine waves, I tested some animals to detect their electrical waveforms, or perhaps souls. So this is the hard part, trying to convince the animal to get close enough to me so that I can try to get a reading with the portable oscilloscope. Okay, I'll try it right now. So this is the waveform of the horse. This is the, as I could term, the horse soul. Perfect. So this is it. This is the waveform generated from a bull. Driving back from the farm, I had an epiphany. Radio waves are all around us, yet we cannot see them. I realized the animal or human soul doesn't leave the body upon death to float around invisibly. Rather, well, let me show you my revelationary conclusion. My cat named Coupon had caught and killed a field mouse and provided me with the ultimate opportunity to test and prove my theory on the soul. So here we have the apparatus. One tin can covered with foil and coils. A little bit hot right now. Another tuna can with 3 candles in it underneath the first tin can, and the first tin can is covered with copper coils to detect the electrical signal. Now we're going to put the mouse into the tin can and see if that mouse actually registers a signal when heated. These are the readings before, during, and after heating. As you can see, the signal clearly diminishes. The law of conservation of energy states that the total amount of energy in an isolated system, like the human body, remains constant over time. A consequence of this law is that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one state to another. If a dead human body was heated, then the soul of that individual could be transferred, insulated like the Jed pillar. It could be transferred as an electrical signal to a new human egg or ovum, using an ankh encompassing the egg itself. The cloned sheep dolly was a single mammary cell injected into an emptied sheep ovum, then subjected to an electrical spark. However, the mammary cell was old and Dolly developed a degenerative lung disease. Some Aboriginal tribes powdered down the umbilical cord and kept it in a pouch around their neck. If the cell for the human clone was from an umbilical cord, then the cell would be fresh, lending itself to an electrical spark, the transferred human soul. It could become a healthy human. Further to that, if the cell of the umbilical cord was that of the individuals themselves, cryogenically frozen at their birth, the human would be the first god, having an identical soul and DNA. Humans without the identical umbilical cells undergoing this process would be demigods, having the same soul yet different DNA. The flesh of dead humans eventually decomposes, leaving only bones. Maybe the electrical signal of that individual, their soul, recedes into the porous calcium hydroxylapatite of their bones. If these bones were heated and underwent the same process, perhaps we could raise the dead and bring them back to life. If this theory was true, then I would not only be devious, but like Jesus, after the day of judgment, raising the dead, and like Ta, the father of the gods. And as they, the disciples, came down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, saying, "Tell the vision to no man until the Son of Man be risen again from the dead." And here it is, the electrical signal of the human soul.